there was a complete distancing before I came back to. And in that distancing is where I probably experienced some of the most turbulent years of my life, honestly. That's when substances came into more of a focal point. That's where numbing out, that's where different things without that, I guess I removed something, but then I was just kind of floating. Like, well, I know it's not that, but I hadn't really figured out what it was yet. So it's probably around college, where I had a little more freedom. I wasn't, didn't have to go to church every Sunday with my family, was able to choose. And so once I moved out of my parents' house, I was exposed to, I remember freshman year in college being in a philosophy 101 class, and it like blew my mind. I was like, what are we doing? Who am I? Like full out existential crisis at like freshman year in college, because a lot of the concepts made a lot of sense to me, but I had never really sat with them. So I didn't have the proper, I guess, foundation to integrate those types of concepts. So I had kind of wiped out one programming, and then I was like exposed to some other stuff that I wasn't really able to fully digest. And, but I was interested in it. I also was exposed to Buddhism during that time, to forms of prayer and worship. There was a spiritual living center at the High in Atlanta. I remember visiting that with some friends. So I was open to exploring different things, but I also wasn't rooted enough to really know what to do with it.
So then when did you start to formulate a greater understanding about the sort of ideas that they were coming to you?
I found therapists who practice subtle energy work. And I didn't really know what all that was at that time, but I knew I needed therapy. And so, with that understanding of energy, frequency, vibration, the metaphysical world, I also think I came upon Louise Hay during that time. What is her classic book? You Can Heal Your Life. So I was just, because of the pain, I was seeking support. And for me, the pathway of mental health and emotional wellness was the entry into my spiritual awakening and opening. But it was largely connected through pain points in the earlier years. So yeah, the books, the meditations, having different conversations. I think I did check out the Spiritual Living Center a few times. Those things were all really great. And that was probably around junior year in college. So maybe like 2 or 3 years after having that initial philosophy 101 class.
Where did the pain come from that you were experiencing? Where did that originate? Was it from any sort of childhood trauma, or where did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was childhood trauma, but a lot of it was also just being a highly sensitive being, an empath, a deep feeler, and feeling things around me that I did not have the language to express or communicate. So a lot of it was just the density of being on Earth. And my parents were amazing at what they had skills to do. But again, they were raised in kind of like a traditional Black Christian home. And so some of the things I remember my mom will always tell me, I think I was 4 or 5, and she said I looked up at her and asked her, like, what is our purpose here? Like, why are we here? And she was like, what do you mean? Like, we're in the grocery store, like I'm getting groceries. And she said no, like she could tell the look in my eye meant like, why are we on this earth? And I asked her like 2 or 3 times, and I said, well, what did you think? And she was like, I was really freaked out. I didn't know what to do because I knew what you meant.
Hmm.
She's like, I have this little girl in the grocery store asking me this really big question, and I knew what you meant, and I didn't have the answer. And so, you know, there were a lot of moments like that where, I experienced hovering, forms of disassociation, which I don't think that was all trauma, but I also know that some of that was my spiritual body trying to integrate to this density of the earth school, and it was really painful. I mean, I had a suicide attempt when I was 8. And that wasn't from anything specific. It was from an accumulation of pain and misunderstandings of my own self, really early in life.